Welcome back to the Ascended Podcast. Every single gig driver in America is basically running somebody else's business for them. Right? They do the work, and essentially the app decides what most people are worth. Our guest today looked at that and asked a stupidly simple question. What if the driver kept everything and just paid for the tool instead? I'm Caleb Schuelke. With me, as always,
Anthony Parra.
and today we've got two of our friends from college, Noah Harper and Jay Harris, the founders of Shift, which is a ride sharing platform that flips the entire model on its head. Noah, Jay, welcome on.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys for being here. So before we get into any of this, Noah, why don't you finish the sentence for me in your own way, right? Uber and Lyft's model, if you had to say, is broken because blank.
I'd say it depends on the perspective of how you define broken. I'd say it works from a monetary standpoint as a business owner, at least in the past year since they're now profitable. But from a driver's perspective, it's broken in the fact that from what I've seen discourse online, it seems like they used to take home probably 75% of the ride share, and now that model has flipped. So it seems closer to like 25% of the driver gets to take home what they earn. And then it's also sort of broken to me as I do use Uber and Uber Eats. And then I'll spend $10. Let's say I take a ride to the airport in St. Louis. It's an $80 ride. I'll ask the driver what they get. They say $20 plus whatever you tip. And then I'm like, okay, well, where is the $40 going? And it feels like there's just this black box of money that is like, okay, it's fees, it's interest, it's whatever. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of confusing as a consumer of the product as to where my money's actually going.
I'd agree. I mean, Anthony, what do you think? I mean, it seems like a
That's
good idea,
interesting.
right?
Yeah, off the bat, for sure. That was going to be my number one question, right? Is why is this different from what Uber or Lyft is doing, right? Probably the question everybody gives you guys. So that's it. I mean, I've thought about that too in other instances. Like, I was somewhere last week too. I was doing something where I thought too, like, why is this so much? Because I know you're only making a percentage. I think that's an important question to ask, right? Did you have any like specific experiences I know you just mentioned one kind of in reference, right? In like your research for this kind of market where something stuck with you about maybe somebody's story?
A story is just honestly the idea stemmed from just scrolling on social media and seeing people like, everybody wants to own their own business, and driving your own car for Uber it kind of feels like that because you get to pick your own hours, and you're working with the stuff that you have and you're in control whether you accept the ride or not. So it feels people, from what I see, the civil discourse is just that, it's becoming more and more impossible, especially as gas prices have risen due to the, everything going on overseas right now. It's just borderline impossible to be able to make a living for yourself, and especially a family, no matter how much you drive. Personally,
Yeah.
I don't know, Jay, have you seen something different?
No, I think you kind of hit it. It's not just online, but like an amalgamation of Uber drivers we've talked to, like being in the back of an Uber and we're just chatting with them. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was with one of our other friends, and the Uber driver had all of his rides like planned out for the day, which awesome on him. And it still just seemed like, for the amount of effort that he has to go through just to scrape by for a day, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
So
I know
you
he's just
mentioned
not
like,
getting much.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
he's not
mentioned
getting
that
much
like
of that kickback.
drivers are frustrated with this, right? But like, how did those stories that they were telling you of those experiences how did that shift into like this? There's like an avenue here to fill with a company of our own. What kind of led that thought process?
So I'm sure we've all had a similar experience, but a good example of this is, so because me and Angelica, my wife, have been separated like physically. So I've been living closer to St. Louis and she was living in LA. We had to travel a lot. So she would take an Uber, and then she met like an Uber driver that she felt comfortable with. And she asked like, hey, do you have like a business card or whatever? So she gave him a business card, and then that driver would be able to charge half the cost that the Uber would and still make more money if she just called her directly and was like, hey, could I schedule a ride with you at this time? And so it is something that I've seen other Uber drivers offer. They'll have like little cards in the back or whatever and be like, hey, if you need something, just hit me up. So I'm like, well, there's obviously a market for a product that you can just say, hey, I need this. And Uber and Lyft are great products, and they have fulfilled that need, but it has shifted because drivers want to make more money, riders want to pay less, and people are finding workarounds. So if we can fit ourselves right into that workaround where drivers can automatically collect the money and it's all in one spot and it has the same ease of use as Uber and Lyft, then we feel like we can slide right into that nice groove.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
Jay.
interesting. That kind of makes me, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say that kind of makes me think of like shifting the model in a sense of like, it makes me think of barbers, right? Most barbershops, the actual barber isn't paying to be like part of some large, nation or worldwide corporation that's charging them to use the tools they need to do the cuts and the places they need. They're just paying to like use their little booth, right? And then they are in control of like how much work they take in and all the money goes straight to them. So would you say it's something similar to that kind of business model?
I would say
Almost
it's something
exactly.
similar to that business
Yeah.
model, yeah.
Okay.
And
That's
and
so
that's
interesting.
what we're doing is we're just taking we're taking a financial model and we're taking the business model that haven't been put together yet and putting them together. But that's also why part of why the name of the app is Shift.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a play on words, right? Multiple meanings there.
Yeah.
I like that.
So you guys hear the complaint a lot too, like we don't make enough money. Drivers say that all the time. It's like it's almost ridiculous. I remember seeing the trend of people would like cancel the ride as soon as the Uber showed up and be like, "Hey, I'll just Venmo you like more than you would get paid." And then I have to pay less too because the fees are just so crazy. And then Uber caught on to that really quickly and they have to like confirm everything. And like, if you cancel within a certain time, they're still going to take a fee and stuff now. It's just ridiculous. So, why hasn't I don't know if you guys have like data or anything on like, how bad this actually is after the platform's cut or anything like that. But I'm kind of wondering like if drivers are this unhappy, why hasn't Uber just paid more or why haven't, what are the efforts made and what's going on Uber's side of this? Because I'd assume they still want to keep a company running with drivers, but what are they doing on their end of this? Are they trying to fix it or what's going on? Same with Lyft and everybody too.
Well, personally, I
Jay,
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of that's going to come from the fact that because Uber kind of pioneered this business model in general, they had to take lots of heavy losses up front that they now have to make up for. So they took a lot of the legal hits. They took a lot of the other financial burdens that were associated with trying to start up this for the very first time that now competitors kind of just mooch off, like Lyft and Waymo kind of just already have that set up because Uber led that way. And it's probably difficult for them to still make a profit for shareholders because at the end of the day, they're a publicly traded company and they have to make money for shareholders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about on the podcast previously. I guess that concept of it's not necessarily the people that move first in the market that end up doing the best long term, but if it's a brand new idea that comes out, right, obviously they're going to gain the popularity if it's just something actually in demand like Uber has. But then people like you guys have the opportunity then down the line to kind of see, holes in the system, I guess, and kind of poke through those and then maybe make better solutions to solve those problems while still meeting the main objective. So you say mooching off of, but I want to give you props for like seeing a problem instead of just kind of playing along like most people are right now, trying to figure out a way to make this better for both the consumer and the people providing the service. So that's just, I wouldn't even call it mooching really. That's just a lot of businesses are that way. I think you guys have found a good way to enter into that. I kind of want to ask another question here, in line with what the discussion is, more about like how the actual model, the business model works. So it kind of sort of sounds like the fix to this problem that we've noted is to kind of ask maybe a broke driver, someone who's putting in the hours but not necessarily getting the payment that they probably deserve for how much time they're putting in on an app like Uber or Lyft. The solution here sounds like is to offer them, is it a subscription model? How are we going from allowing them to just have fees taken out of their rides by Uber to a subscription where you say, is it a subscription first of all? And then how are you meeting this this claim that they get to keep everything they make. Can you break that down for how that actually works for a driver?
Yeah, so we're still working on what that exact number for what our subscription fee would be, but essentially it's just to cover most of our operating costs for whatever servers we're running everything on. But we're not trying to take a massive profit from each ride. If they're doing a bajillion rides and making like a bunch of money, that's their money to make. They just pay for access to the platform, which connects them to riders who want to get a ride. And then anything that happens after that, none of our business. You make your money.
With the
Well,
one exception of transaction fees. Obviously, if we set a monthly subscription of $50 a month and they do 1,000 rides, then we would lose money per person. So transaction
yeah,
fees will automatically be taken out, but that's about 3% at
yes,
a high end.
transaction fees are taken out. Sorry, I did forget about that. That is
That's good.
the only
You're-
fee associated.
Can you explain how you would be losing money? Because in my eyes, like, I guess I'm just curious now, asking how it's set up. You guys develop the platform, the transaction fees cover. Is it just costing? This is more of like a developmental question, I guess. Is it costing you every time someone goes to schedule a ride? Is that what you mean by you'd be
Yeah,
losing money?
anytime you buy anything with a card, you're going to be charged a fee by Visa, MasterCard, just whoever owns your card. It's about 3%. So
Okay, so you're just forwarding the cost of that onto you. It's not like you're taking an extra 3% on.
no,
Uh,
no, it's purely going so that the transaction does happen.
yeah, that makes
Yes.
sense.
And
Can you
and
go
like
can you
with-
go a little deeper on that? Like so lay it out right plainly. Like a driver subscribes to use it. Shift takes zero of the actual fare itself. There is a transaction fee. I assume that's getting passed on to the customer's cost or something, and then the driver keeps
Yes.
100%. Can you walk through like the start to finish of a trip and how money is made? And more importantly, like how does that compete with like pricing models of these other companies? And what does that look like on the inside?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's on both apps, it's a pretty simple process. You log in as a driver, somebody logs in as a driver, somebody logs in as a rider. The rider will say, "Hey, I'm here and I want to go here." And then the driver gets a notification and they're like, "I'm pretty close. I'm going to take that ride." Let's say it is a $40 ride. So the driver goes, picks them up, and then drops the rider off wherever they want to go. When that rider pays, they see a detailed list of every single thing and where it's going. So let's say the entire drive is $40. Then the rider would get $47.
It's like itemized
And
out, is
then
what you're saying?
it's itemized out, like, and very simple, because there's only two places that it's going. So it's going to the driver, or it's going to the driver, and it's going to transaction fees, which would just be our Stripe account, because that is how you just take money from the customer and give it to the driver. We have to use Stripe. It's secure. I'm sure you know what it is. But yeah, so that fee just goes to them to be able to use their service to make everything run smooth. But like, the reason that we have to do that is because if a driver averaged $50 a ride and they did 3 rides a day for a whole month, making $5,000, that is $150 in transaction fees alone, which would come out of our pocket if we did not put that on the ride.
That's still like a clear win-win, it sounds like, for both riders and drivers, though. So I don't think you'll have any problem selling that, I guess, that model. But yeah, thanks for explaining that. It's still kind of blowing my mind, I guess, that nobody's thought until you guys just explained it to me to cover, like you said, that kind of price model with this kind of business model. It's pretty cool, I think.
I like the promise that you guys have is like the same kind of ease of use of Uber, Lyft, right? How do you guys are a startup, right? So as like the lean team of really just you two, engineering, pushing it out there, getting tests, feedback, beta users, etc. How do you kind of match that, and how do you get feedback? How do you plan on giving that experience out to people to test it in the real world situations, so you know what to fix and what to make better?
Go ahead, Jake.
Essentially, how do we start? Like
How do
actually
you
getting this.
distribute? What's your distribution, and kind of like how do you roll it out to beta, or how
So
do
that's
you
part of what
onboard?
we've debated. Before I had moved from San Antonio, we talked about whether we were going to try to start in San Antonio or start in St. Louis. now that I'm in Vegas, that might be another good spot to attempt. But essentially, as we take Uber rides or meet people in a bar, whatever, wherever we might run into people that do Uber, just kind of getting them informed of what we're trying to do. And then we were going to offer, we were just saying like a first 100, probably more, maybe less. We don't know. But like the first few people get the first full year free. And anyone that joins after that is paying the subscription, just because it is hard to build a platform like this because you need the customer and you also need the drivers and you need them at the same time. 'Cause if you got a bunch of drivers, but no one wants a ride, they're not getting paid. If you got a bunch of riders and like 4 drivers, then everyone's waiting. And that's also a problem. I actually see that with one of the automated driver companies. They do free rides, but you cannot get one. It's going to be very difficult because they just don't have a lot of the vehicles moving around. So that's kind of the same
Supplying.
thing that we're going to have to run into,
So it sounds like
essentially
you got
getting
to
to a
pick a
scale.
specific market, right? Like you can't just be
Yeah,
like, we're launching. You got to be like, we're targeting the downtown St. Louis area as like a test area.
exactly. So we're actually not the first to do it. We did see another company, Empower, out in DC, and they just haven't scaled because it probably is hard. You have to start in a market. So we're trying to start in our market, one of our markets, and get that worked out.
I will say though that there's a difference between us and what Empower is doing. Empower, they have a slightly different model
Yeah,
than Uber, Lyft, and what we're trying to do. They let the drivers set their own fees, sort of like a taxi where you pay per mile. But that's not what we're trying to do, just to keep it as simple as possible for the drivers, because that is the appeal of Uber. It is very easy to use and it's very well
you
made.
you hop in, there's an adaptive pricing model that you don't have to figure out, oh, what's a good price for me? What's worth it for me to drive? And then also still get people that want rides. You don't have to do any of that market analysis, right? To figure that out. The app's going to do it for you, just like Uber would.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure people otherwise would just have to. They'd probably just rely on like their local market for that kind of decision making.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not even necessarily any mathematical, formula. It's just probably obviously if you charge $1 more than everybody else, then they'll just go with everybody else. So I think that's smart. I assume it'd be based on like what city you're in, maybe length of the trip,
Correct.
depending on gas prices,
Time,
like
in case
time.
there's traffic.
Yeah.
Is this
And then
AI? Would
eventually,
AI be smart pricing it, or how does the algorithm actually like function? Is it like what type of like
just
system are you using to base it?
just computation. At this point, it's
Yeah.
fairly simple. We haven't figured out how we want to weight demand or supply, like if
Mhm.
we have a bunch of extra drivers. So we haven't figured that part out exactly. It's going to take tuning, which is part of why we need to get that initial group for free. And they can just make their money while we try to figure out what those numbers are. You're not getting paid enough for that ride. All right, this parameter has to go up because you're going farther than we thought you should get paid for going that far, or you get punished for going too fast. Whatever it may be, it's a tuning portion
You would punish
as
them
we
for
get
like
drivers.
driving too
No,
fast, is
no,
what
no,
you mean?
no. I'm just saying, like, there might be unintended consequences that we're unaware of in that algorithm, right? A parameter that pays you more for being out longer would punish you if you finish the ride sooner, right? So it's going to come down to tuning those parameters on what beneficial, right, as much as possible. Yeah, otherwise everyone's just hanging around for 30 minutes, driving around the parking lot with you.
Yeah, let me go back to that question too, because you said that thing, giving like earning control, right? You mentioned Empower as that competitor because you can set the rates. That sticks out like something like an Airbnb, right? Where it's like a competitive market, but you try to outprice each other. You spend more of your time managing your listing and your like rates and everything than actually running the business. And I feel like that
Right.
model fails a lot because you're running a business and you're not actually driving the car. You're trying to like perfect the perfect market position and everything like that. So like if you guys mentioned with this phrase when you sent in your information, you mentioned power, dignity, and earning control. So like what does dignity and earning control mean here that Uber can't give to people? Like what does that mean and what's different for the rider as well as the driver?
That was your words, Jay.
You want me to take that? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said dignity, power, and earnings. Is that what it
Earning
was?
control.
Earning control.
Earning control. So for dignity, just the fact that like the work you're doing in putting forth whatever effort is what you get back from the company. We're not trying to take your hard work, essentially. I give you that respect for being a hard worker. And it kind of along with that is the earning control, because you do control how often you're driving and for how long and how far, whatever it is. You have significantly more control over that, especially since you know that each ride that you do is going back to you. You'll likely have that fee covered in your first day of driving for a month, right? So everything else you earn that month is yours to keep. And then dignity, earn control. Sorry, what was our middle one?
Power? You led with power. I kind of want to know what you
Oh,
mean
I
by
guess I
power.
kind of did. Power? You're empowered.
Like the driver or the user is the one that's in control because they're not being like raked over by some big,
Yeah.
monolith company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Correct. That's kind of what we're trying to get across. You take back some power.
Okay.
And kind of in the same way, the customer knows that their money is going to the person that's driving them rather than some large corporation, faceless corporation. It's going to the guy in the front seat right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
I love it. I think it's important. That's probably sounds like some of the guiding principles for the vision for the company, right? So down the line, even in this podcast, if we ask where we see in the future, it's probably what largely dictates how you handle decision making. I would assume.
It's your core
Kind of
values.
want to, yeah, your core values, as they say. I'm kind of curious about the maybe some of the harder parts that have been for you guys to figure out, like in particular, insurance burden or like terms and conditions. So as we understand it, based on the questions you answered for us before this, Shift is a tool, not necessarily a transportation provider, if I'm getting that right. So really, like the insurance burden that other companies like Uber or Lyft face by being a transportation provider shouldn't really land on you. How would you explain like the difference regarding that to a potential investor? And if it were to get kind of sticky in that situation, what's different in your terms and conditions as opposed to theirs?
So you hit the nail on the head. That is, we're still trying to figure that out. Like the way that we envision it is the fact that, because we are a tool that people, when they drive, they are their own business owner. That's what we want. We don't want to be the ones who are in charge of that risk that people take when they become drivers and using their own car. And they also hop into a possible stranger's car. We are building a feature into the app where you can have like your top 5 favorite riders or your top 5 favorite drivers, and that would be like a priority matching. But we don't want to be a part of the risk of that. And so that leads to the question of who owns the risk. Is the rider responsible for their own risk of getting in the car, or is the driver liable for that as well? And that is a bit above our pay grade. That's where we get some professionals
lawyer.
involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're
Yeah,
gonna have
like
to
what
get a
would be
lawyer
the
before
risk
we
if
start this.
a regulator came in and said that you're a transportation company and that's like the way it looks? I don't know. I appreciate you guys being honest too, because like I wouldn't want to rush into that because as you scale is such an important designation to make with how you classify your earnings and like what your write-offs are and like the things you invest in as a company. So you should be taking the time to figure it out too. But yeah.
Well, I can give you guys a short demo if you want.
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to see it.
Can you see it?
Yeah, let me pin it for everybody here. I think I can. Okay, I think it's about as pinned as you can get it.
Okay. Sounds good. So right now I have 6 available drivers for me. You can kind of see where they all are right now, moving around. I'm going to turn myself on as a driver. So it'll turn to 7 in a second.
Damn.
It says that I'm in the same location because it's both me. But let's say we want to go to the airport, Lambert, St. Louis. Okay. And then, wow, It's a $32.32 drive. You want to see what you're paying for? Okay, 1.50 and transaction fees. The booking fees is going away. This is just a demo right now. There's a distance fee, there's a time fee, and then there's light traffic and regular demand. So there's no extra additional cost for that. We're going to request the ride. First available driver is fine. I have a few favorited drivers. Let's request the ride. Okay, boom. There's an incoming ride. I'll accept it. Driver's on the way. I've arrived at pickup. Let's start the trip. Okay, and then you head there. You can share your trip with somebody just in case. And then we shall complete the ride. And then he got there really fast.
Really
Boom.
fast, yeah.
It's basically as simple as that. So that's what I was trying to say with the ease of use. It's very similar to what you would see in Lyft and Uber. And then you can track how much money you've made today. You can see your rating. And then there's like schedule requests coming in. We have other nearby drivers. If you want to be a rider, that's how you switch to be a rider. Then you can just easily switch back to being a driver. And then here's your profile. We have like your car, making sure that your driver's license, insurance, vehicle registration, vehicle photo, profile selfie is all in there. And then all your previous reviews, as well as being able to reach out to me and Jay directly with our support. So we have like a lot of the app actually built out. We there's a few more kinks that we need to work out. Like as far as being able to right now, just for demo purposes, we have it set up to where when the driver says that he's done, that means he's at his location. But obviously, in real practice, you need to be the ride should automatically close when they arrive at the predetermined destination.
Okay.
So
I'm really
yeah,
impressed with some of the algorithm stuff you put together. Especially, I saw like it was like a multiplier based on traffic. I think that's pretty cool. You wouldn't ever see that using Uber. They would probably just charge you. I don't know if they factor that in.
they
That's pretty cool.
absolutely do.
I almost,
They
yeah,
100%.
they definitely do.
Yeah. I just am saying I would never know because I don't think Uber breaks it down like that. So that's pretty cool to see.
Mhm.
That's awesome. I guess my next question for you is like clearly you have a pretty solid MVP, your minimum viable product here. And you mentioned there's a few kinks to be worked out, obviously, right? But I also understand you're working towards getting it in front of your first few users with the MVP, potentially investors, if I'm not mistaken, based on your responses to the questions. So I guess my question for you is what kind of things do you see standing between you guys and those first few meetings between users, drivers or riders, and then also investors as well?
So um, we need to finalize all of our plugins first. That being, we need to, I don't want this to be a product that we're pitching to investors or drivers or riders until we know that they are going to be safe. So the driver's photo and the insurance photos, there are plugins that are available to ensure that everybody is telling the truth when they send something in, including their driver's license. And we want to make sure that, obviously that is taken care of before we push this to market. And then the last thing that we will need to do is bring in investors so that we may market this and be able to bring in the riders and the drivers that we need. And then from there, we will scale, hopefully, starting in one city, be that Las Vegas or St. Louis.
Hmm. As well as some of the other services that we've discussed between us
Hmm.
in relation to this.
Yep. And then obviously, we need to speak to a few lawyers before we push this as well. But that would come
Yeah.
with the investors, most likely.
You mentioned you're looking for investors and promoters, right? So to anybody listening that's seeing a clip of this or watching the full episode or the segment, who is that ideal person? Not only just like as an investor that you'd want to be part of the team, but who would be an ideal user for this? Or if they're maybe driving, what would be some of the factors that they might be dealing with as a user or a driver to look into and try to get involved with this app, especially with the early opportunity here? And what should they do next if they are that person?
What we're looking for is somebody who's willing to not have profit be their number one motivation. Like a big part of the reason that we're building this, obviously we do want to be profitable. That's why we have a subscription fee, but we want people to be able to take their money and the way that they make their money back into their own hands. Whereas with other competitors, possibly that they may not feel that same way. And we are looking for drivers who want this to be their main thing. If you are on Uber and you only do 2 or 3 rides a month, then the $50 subscription may not be for you. But if this is your full-time gig, then a $50 subscription compared to the $5,000 that you make is just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
For riders, if you are someone who likes to know where your money is going when you are paying for a service, then this is probably the app for you.
Right. That's the email to get in touch with Noah and the team if you want to invest or to play a role in this company right now.
The forefront.
Right. We want to give people a company where they feel like it cares about them and it takes care of them, because that is becoming increasingly more rare. And we hope to build something that people care about us and we care about them. And it's a symbiotic relationship.
Honestly, I think you've done a great job explaining, down to the development of how this has all gone down for you guys, down to how you came up with the idea. I really appreciate this perspective. And I think it's inspiring too for people watching it that might have ideas of their own to see people kind of actualize on ideas that they're having and to be able to get to a point where they've developed something as an MVP that they can now take to the first few people and get it started up. I'm super excited to see in the future what you guys are going to do with this. I guess we kind of talked through about, maybe we haven't yet, where you guys see yourselves in like the next 6 to 12 months. This has been super exciting for me to hear about.
Or bigger yet, let's do one more. Like we asked you the question at the beginning, why are they broken? Where do you guys, the Air Force Academy graduates pairing together, building this app, where do you see it in 5 years? And what is Shift? If you had to paint that picture for somebody that's excited to be part of this.
In the next 5 years, I would like for us to be, a more known option for both riders and drivers. We want to be known as the option of integrity and honesty. Like, where your money's going, where your money has been, and it's going to end up in your pocket. Whereas other companies may be known as more of a black box when it comes to how the money's being spent. So hopefully in 5 years, we're able to get a good customer base, both in riders and drivers. We feel like we have a good model here that promotes bringing in drivers who actually want to continue to drive more and work more and get better ratings, because we're building it for them. So we want them to use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to be multi-city.
Mhm.
We've expanded our options for like things like last mile delivery that people feel it's easy to use. And you hear our name next to Uber. You hear Uber, Lyft, and Shift.
Yeah.
And I would also like to expand into like a food delivery
Food
within 5
delivery,
years for
freight.
sure.
Yeah. We've discussed some expansions before we've gotten
Planes,
there.
rent a jet, rent
We
a
got planned.
bicycle. Yeah.
Yes.
We're gonna all have to take shift owned PJs to different places one day.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if we'll make enough money for that, but maybe
Hey,
one of
dream big,
our
dream big.
drivers will make enough money for that.
Absolutely. You're kind of making me want to be a driver here in about a year or so when it's there's a
Nice.
customer base for that.
Okay, well, we'll save a spot for you.
Appreciate you.
I'll save you a line in the super base table.
One database entry away from being rich on Shift, getting your side hustle going. Well, guys, thank you for watching for the past 30, 45 minutes. It's been an exciting episode. Shift is Noah Harper and Jay Harris, two guys I know that are getting it done. And the whole bet is simple, as we've said. The drivers should own their work. They shouldn't rent it from a company that's giving them pennies on the dollar. If you are an investor, or if you know drivers who need to hear this and to join the app, reach Noah directly. The email I put in the video, it's also going to be down below. That's in the description. And guys, you too, Anthony, as always too, thanks for coming on. Everybody else, if this got you thinking about who ride sharing is actually supposed to be for, like the business model intends, subscribe, check their account out, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for being in, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.